They said I was forgettable, ordinary, invisible. He told me once, "You're the kind of girl people don't turn around for." He laughed. And I believed him. They all rewrote my story before I even got to write the first chapter. Dismissed me like background noise. Like I'd never have a headline moment. But I wasn't failing. I was forming, becoming, quietly, slowly, like silk threading through the hem of something divine. And on that night, under chandeliers in Paris, dressed in sapphire and silence, he saw me, the same man who once called me plain. His lips parted like he'd seen a ghost. But I wasn't a ghost. I was the fire he thought he put out. My name is Emily. I'm 29. I live in Paris now. But the girl they left behind? She never really stayed there. Growing up, I was never the one people expected much from. I wasn't rebellious or radiant. I was reliable. The kind of girl who blended into beige walls, always on time, always polite. Everyone said I'd make a good wife someday. A teacher, maybe. Or a nurse. A safe girl. I studied business because it was practical. My parents were relieved. She's finally doing something with herself. My older sister was the brilliant one. I was just stable. Quiet. Then I met Ethan. He was charming, the golden type. He spoke in spark and walked like the world belonged to him. He liked me because I listened, because I laughed at his stories. But never once did he ask me about mine. On our last dinner together, after 2 years of me folding myself to fit his world, he said it like a passing comment. "You're just too plain to love forever, you know?" I froze. He didn't even flinch. I didn't cry that night. I just went home and stared at the ceiling. Then I packed a bag. When I told my parents I was leaving the country for a while, they didn't ask why. My mother nodded too quickly. My father just sighed. "She's just taking a break. It's probably one of her quiet phases. We don't talk about that anymore." And just like that, I disappeared from their expectations. I flew to Paris. No one noticed. But I noticed myself for the first time in years. Paris didn't greet me with magic. It greeted me with rain. Cold, gray, soaking through my suitcase rain. I had rented a tiny attic room near Montmartre. Walls thin as paper, the heater older than I was. I lived on croissants and shame for the first few weeks. I found work through a student forum, an events assistant for a small, barely surviving agency that supported nonprofit galas and cultural exhibitions. It wasn't glamorous. It was grunt work. I steamed dresses, carried chairs, unloaded wine crates. Nobody knew my name. Some mispronounced it even with the name tag. I almost quit during the first winter. It felt like I had run away from emptiness just to find a colder version of it. Then one afternoon, everything changed in a way that didn't make headlines, but still mattered. We were setting up for a small art fundraiser for Alzheimer's research. There was an older woman, Madame Laurette, who had donated 3 pieces from her late husband's collection. She kept fiddling with her phone, trying to show a video of her husband painting, but it wouldn't play. "This machine hates me," she muttered in French, half laughing, half defeated. I asked if I could help. A few taps, a file restore, and the video played. Her husband's voice filled the gallery. She put a hand over her mouth and cried. "You brought my baby into my living room," she whispered, gripping my hand. That night, I went home with something I hadn't felt in years. A quiet kind of purpose. The kind you don't post. The kind that doesn't trend. But still, it pulsed. It grew. No one clapped, but something inside me finally did. It didn't make headlines, but it mattered. After that moment with Madame Laurette, I started saying yes more. Not louder, just more consistently. I wasn't chasing success. I was following the tiny echoes of meaning. I pitched an idea to my boss. What if we launched a small digital guide for elderly patrons to help them engage with our events online? He shrugged. "Try it if you've got time." I had time. And I had empathy. I built the guide using free tools. Simple instructions. Big buttons. Warm fonts. We called it Encore. It started small, 12 downloads the first week. Then word got out. By the 3rd month, 1,200 users were logging in weekly. Then came an email from a library in Lyon. Then a museum in Belgium. Then a tech grant proposal we never thought would be approved, but it was. We built an app. We created tutorials, multilingual captions, voice-controlled navigation. 78% email open rate. That's higher than some Fortune 500 companies. But back home, no one knew. When I called my mom after the app launch, she said, "That's nice, sweetie. Are you eating okay?" My brother sent me a meme about burnout. My sister didn't respond. I visited once. Just once. At dinner, my father asked, "So, you're still doing that? What is it, teaching old folks to click buttons?" Real noble work. He smiled as he said it. Everyone else laughed. I smiled too. Because I knew. I knew we'd just passed 10,000 users. I knew we'd helped a blind veteran hear his daughter's voice on a digital gallery wall. I knew we'd made strangers feel less forgotten. But I also knew that none of it was ever going to be enough for them. My family was stuck on the version of me that faded into the background. The girl who took up little space. Who didn't make anyone uncomfortable. To them, I was still the free spirit. Still finding herself. But in Paris, something else was happening. I was becoming a name people forwarded to others with the words, "She gets things done." Quietly, but powerfully. I started mentoring new interns. I began attending panels, small ones, but meaningful. People introduced me with titles I'd never given myself. Creative director, digital strategist, accessibility innovator. I never corrected them, because they weren't wrong. They just saw what my family refused to look at. I wasn't chasing applause. I was building an echo chamber of quiet revolutions. And somehow, without realizing it, I had become a woman worth looking at, even if my family still looked away. The Gala in Paris wasn't supposed to be special. It was one of our annual events, Voices of Grace, to honor unsung contributors in community service. A velvet invitation, soft piano music, roses in crystal vases. I wore a midnight blue gown. Nothing flashy. Just something that felt like silence dressed in silk. I was managing backstage logistics, making sure the donor names were spelled right, and the projector didn't freeze again. Until I saw him, Ethan, across the room, holding champagne, laughing in that way that used to melt my spine. He hadn't changed much. Still golden. Still so sure of himself. He hadn't seen me. Not yet. I froze. But only for a second. I returned to my checklist. Then someone tapped my shoulder. It was a young woman in a soft green dress. Nervous smile. "Excuse me, do you work here?" "Yes," I replied. "Do you need something?" She fumbled with her clutch. "I was hoping to meet someone from the Encore project. My fiancé's grandfather uses it. It changed his life." I blinked. She continued. "Before Encore, he wouldn't even come out of his room. Now he logs into live gallery talks. He even messaged me last week to say he visited Paris digitally. He hasn't smiled like that in years." She smiled, then paused. "I don't know who built it, but if you ever meet her, tell her thank you. From Camille. And from Jean-Claude." I didn't say anything right away. I just nodded, then whispered, "It was me." She stared at me. Her mouth fell open. "Wait, you? You're the founder?" I nodded again. Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry, that sounds silly. I didn't think the person behind all this would be so young and graceful." For a moment, I felt like someone had opened a window I didn't know was locked. She grabbed my hand. "Thank you. You gave him a reason to hope again." Then I heard it. "Emily." Ethan. He had walked up behind us, glass in hand, voice unsure. I turned slowly. He looked at me like I was some distant constellation he couldn't quite name. His eyes searched my face like he didn't trust what he was seeing. "Wow. You look..." He didn't finish the sentence. Camille looked between us. "You two know each other?" Ethan cleared his throat. "We used to see each other. Years ago." Camille smiled softly, then turned to me again. "I should go. But really, thank you. You're changing lives." She left. Ethan and I stood there, two ghosts from different pasts. He finally said it. I didn't know you moved to Paris. I didn't think you cared. He flinched a little. You've changed. No, I said, holding my head steady. I just stopped shrinking. He tried to smile. It came out lopsided. I saw your name on the program. Didn't think it was you. It is. I paused. And it's staying. He laughed softly. I guess I was wrong about you. I nodded once. You were. Then I turned away. Not because I was angry, but because the moment had said everything it needed to say. I didn't need a second chance with him. I didn't need his praise. I had something better. A stranger's gratitude. A soul I'd touched without ever meeting. Not because I demanded attention, but because the truth walked in by itself and refused to stay quiet. A week after the gala, I received a letter. Handwritten. The handwriting was familiar. Slanted and slightly shaky. It was from my mother. Emily, we saw your name in an online article. I didn't understand all of it, but your father printed it and highlighted things. He doesn't say much, but he left it on the table where everyone could see. Just thought you should know. We're proud of you. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I just folded it and placed it in my drawer, right next to my passport and a velvet ribbon from the gala. I didn't need to frame it. I just needed to know it existed. A few days later, my brother sent a voice note. It was short. Hey, I was a jerk. Just wanted to say your work's pretty amazing. I told my friend about it. He's in UX design. He said what you built is years ahead of what most people even try. So, yeah. Respect. I listened once, then again, then deleted it. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need to collect apologies anymore. Something inside me had shifted. Not like an explosion, more like a tide that had quietly, finally, gone out. And I could breathe. I still walked the same streets. Still used the same metro pass. Still lived in the same tiny flat. But everything had changed. I wasn't waiting for them to understand me anymore. I wasn't shrinking myself to earn their version of love. It wasn't pride. It was peace. I didn't print the letter. I just kept it. Because that was enough now. And so was I. If you've ever been called too plain, too quiet, too soft, too unremarkable to be chosen, then this story was always meant for you. They mistook your stillness for weakness. They misunderstood your gentleness as lack. But one day, the very parts of you they dismissed will become the reason someone thanks God you exist. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need applause to matter. You don't need to become anyone else to be unforgettable. Because your quiet brilliance, your slow, patient, graceful becoming, is already shaking the world in places most people can't even see. So, where are you watching from? Tell me your story in comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. And maybe, just maybe, they'll see their own reflection in your voice. Thank you for being here, for feeling this with me, and for choosing stories that honor the ones who bloom in silence. There's more to come. Real stories, quiet victories, and always second chances.